All right. It's Tuesday. So it's time to play that game. It's Overreaction Tuesday. I'm super pumped to get into this one. Post-draft, I got some good ones for you. Everybody else, if you've got some overreactions, toss them in the chat because we're going to get to at least a couple of them before we move on from my favorite segment of the week. Let's get into it.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
Sometimes it's very subtle. We didn't get a Tomlinism from Mike Tomlin this past weekend, but that's all right. I was looking for one. I got a side eye because for anybody who goes back and watches the press conference afterwards, I'm the guy that asked if the quarterback room, if they expected the quarterback position to shake out the way that it did, because I obviously wasn't going to drop the name Shedeur Sanders in the middle of a press conference that I knew I wasn't going to get an answer about. So I tried to sneak it in there a little bit, waiting for the moment. And all I see from the side as I stare at Omar Khan is Mike T going. And I'm like, all right, thanks. Thank you. Appreciate that one. So shout out Mike T, man. Appreciate everybody. Let's dive into them. I got 5 good ones for you here. We're going to start with the guy that we were just talking about. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a plan in place. They've had a plan in place. They're thinking Aaron Rodgers is the guy this year. Will Howard made it to the 6th round, but he was a dude many thought was going to go 3rd round, maybe potential 1st round at some point when we were talking about this whole shenanigans, and fell like the rest of the quarterback class. But if Shedeur Sanders is still viewed as the guy that could be the long-term option in Cleveland as a 5th round pick, maybe Will Howard could be the same thing in the 6th round for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers don't have to keep worrying about next year. They don't have to dive in and give up everything and sell the house for a franchise quarterback. They might have one in play. Will Howard's the next guy in Pittsburgh. They don't got to worry about next year and getting a quarterback again.
That is not an overreaction. It is just on the board. I was hoping I'd get you mid-sip. It's close. It's close.
Okay.
But it is not an over-exaggeration. It is not an overreaction. It's possible. That's it. It could happen.
It could happen. I think there's a possibility. I hope I like Will Howard, man. I think this dude cried when he got the phone call. That always adds a little bit of like oomph to me. You know what I mean? I'm all about it. Mm-hmm. He's a outside of Philadelphia kid, which is pretty much Scranton. Not really, but you know what I mean? I like to say that I'm from, that's what I'm saying. Same side of the state. Yeah. Good people raised over there. Seems like a good dude. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but this entire quarterback saga has been a blast. Content-wise, I've been having a hell of a time. It's never a dull day here on All Steelers Talk. But I'm exhausted, and I don't know if I got another year in me to do the same thing once again. Overreaction. I like that one. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Everybody's talking about the George Pickens trade. You know what I mean? And is he going to Dallas? Are we going to trade him at some point? Are the Pittsburgh Steelers destined to move on from the wide receiver that right now they probably can't even replace? Well, they could replace somebody on their roster. They have depth at other places. And during the NFL draft, it wasn't George Pickens and the lack of wide receivers that we should be looking at when it comes to trades. It's the defensive side of the football. The Pittsburgh Steelers used their 4th round pick to draft outside linebacker Jack Sawyer. No, TJ Watt's not going anywhere, but the door is certainly open for somebody else to. It's not George Pickens that is potentially on the trade block for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's possibly Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig.
Overreaction. Overreaction.
I
love the Jack Sawyer pick. I really did. I think, just the fact that they got him in the 4th round is great. He's explosive off the edge. Depth of that position's great. You never know what's going to happen. I'm not inclined to give up on Highsmith for one. I'm a big fan of his, but also, Herbig is just really still on that upward climb in terms of his impact on the team. So I would be very, very hesitant to give up on either of those players. So I'm going to go overreaction for that one.
Overreaction. Look at Highsmith costs a lot of money. Herbig is great at coming off the edge as a pass rusher. Jack Sawyer, I mean, he's got Steeler DNA. That's what they kept saying. He's a Pittsburgh manhood versus manhood every time he steps on the field, which is exactly what I did on the other side of that phone when he said it out loud. I looked at everyone and said, yeah, that's a guy. That's a Pittsburgh Steeler right there. All right, overreaction. I hear you. We'll see what happens. We'll go take it back to the quarterback position for this next one. But we're not going to stick around in Pittsburgh. We're going to head to the team we were just talking about. AFC North, right on the Erie River there, or the Erie Lake, whatever it is, whatever's over there, the body of water outside of the windiest city in the entire United States of America. They got too many quarterbacks. And look at Dylan Gabriel's not going anywhere. Joe Flacco won comeback player of the year last time he was in Cleveland. And Shedeur Sanders, I mean, the owners clearly want him, so you can't get rid of him. That's the problem with your ownership making a draft pick. They got too many quarterbacks. They're not taking 4 guys with starting possibilities into the 2025 season. It's going to take some time, but the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they're waiting on a dream that may not come true in Aaron Rodgers. And we have no idea what's going to happen and if he's eventually going to sign or not, or how long it's going to take to sign. Well, if Aaron Rodgers says no, says, you know what, these personal things off the field, I'm good. I can't be coming back to the NFL, which all due respect, man, you do what you got to do on your side of life. No doubt about it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be looking for a quarterback. They're not walking into the season with Mason Rudolph as their guy. They're not giving 6th round pick Will Howard an opportunity. Well, come June, maybe July, maybe you wait a little bit longer, but probably not. Steelers could call their AFC North rival and say, hey, let's talk about an old friend of ours. I'm saying Kenny Pickett is an option to be the Steelers quarterback this season if Aaron Rodgers says, no, I'm good. I'm going to retire.
Oh, man, my skin began to crawl upon hearing the end of that. I am hoping with every fiber of my being that is an overreaction. You have me convinced that he's going to be on another franchise before week 1 with the way the quarterback room is going to shake out in Cleveland. I think the ship has sailed in terms of his relationship with the Steelers. They know what they got with him. Did not end well. And I think that they are very okay with never touching that again. So I really hope that's an overreaction.
Well, look at if your options are Mason, I could tell you this. Things did not end well with Kenny and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you want to know who they find new and creative ways to just screw over time and time and time again? Mason Rudolph. And you're telling me that on the long list of wildness that has been, I mean, Mason Rudolph was a guy who got told in a meeting that he's given an opportunity to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then in public was like, yeah, I'm not giving any opportunity. They're not even talking about this. Why Mike Tomlin is making me look at that. If that's the case, they're not going to find a fun and creative way to do it again. And that's Kenny Pickett. All right. I hear you. Would be a wild time. What's your record? Let's, before I go on to 4 here, what's your record? I'm batting 1,000. Just so everybody's well aware, I'm batting 1,000 where we're at through 3. What's your record with Kenny Pickett? And what's your record with Mason Rudolph this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Ooh. It really is a very small difference. I think if Mason starts all 17, they'd go, would that be 10-7 or something like that. 10.
Yeah.
I think with Kenny Pickett, you're lucky to hit 9 wins.
Ooh. You're a Mason over Kenny guy.
I really am a Mason over Kenny guy.
Okay.
And it's a shame because I'm a Pitt grad and I'm just doing my boy no favors. But
none.
I'm a Mason guy right now.
All right. I like it. All right. Let's keep it trucking here. We'll go to the NFL draft in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there's skew of 7 guys that came in, really 8, because DK Metcalf obviously counts as a 2nd round pick. And I mean, that dude's a stud. How do you beat DK Metcalf? I don't know how you beat a guy who's an all-pro, who's 28 years old, who is an athletic freak, who brings everything you're looking for, who's worth a 2nd round pick probably and more, a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers said we're handing $150 million to at a wide receiver position, something we've never done before, but we're going to do it now because we think he's going to be the best value for that second round pick. Well, when this is all said and done, when the dust settles, whether it's the end of this season, whether it's the end of next season, whenever, DK Metcalf is going to be great maybe for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have high hopes and expectations for DK Metcalf, but he's not going to be the best. DK Metcalf against the field will not be the Pittsburgh Steelers' best draft pick of the 2025 offseason.
Ooh, overreaction. That one feels easier for me because I just think Metcalf's impact is going to be truly a difference maker. I'm pumped about Harmon. I think the defensive side of the ball improved greatly just from the draft picks. I will concede that 100%. Okay. But, especially we're talking about all this George Pickens nonsense and not sure what's going on there. I think having Metcalf there, regardless if it's Mason, Kenny, anyone throwing him the ball, I would rather have DK Metcalf there, and I still think we're going to get 1,000-yard season out of him, and I think that value will equate to a little bit more than something, than Harmon would have to do a lot on the defensive side of the ball to match that value for me.
Derek Harmon, the next Cam Hayward, okay? You got Caleb Johnson, the next Le'Veon Bell. Options are there. Options. Will Howard, next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
I mean, look at all right. I hear you. We'll see what happens. That's a lot of names to beat the field in DK Metcalf. A lot of confidence in a guy. I mean, but you got to have confidence. You paid him $150 million a year. All right. This is my last one for you. I'm still batting 1,000 on this one. I might get you. I might get you on this one. The Pittsburgh Steelers wanted Shedeur Sanders. There was no questions to it. I mean, I broke the news that they brought him in for a visit. That sparked so much conversation. Jerry Dulac, and the words on this show, the advice I always give is if Dulac talks, you listen. And that's what he did here. He said that he's never in his 30 years covering the team had a glowing endorsement the way that Mike Tomlin gave Shedeur Sanders a glowing endorsement during the pre-draft visit. There was so much talk of Shedeur. This dude could have been the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. He could have been the 2nd round pick, the 3rd round pick, the 4th, the 5th. It would have made so much sense if the Pittsburgh Steelers just went out and got Shedeur Sanders and said, dude, who cares when we got him? We got our guy at quarterback. But then there was the talk of the town that the Pittsburgh Steelers, well, they didn't want Shedeur. Mike Tomlin wanted Shedeur Sanders and that he was pounding the table to get Shedeur Sanders. Well, they didn't get him, and they didn't get him because of this. Mike Tomlin didn't draft Shedeur Sanders because he is finally aware that one more bad quarterback move, some big bad quarterback move, finally puts him on the hot seat. Mike Tomlin is starting to get to a point where he's recognizing his job security is not as secure as it once was with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, that's on the money for sure.
Let's go.
Let's go. I think Tomlin is well aware of his track record with quarterbacks in the post-Ben Roethlisberger era.
Yes.
Where the exact blame lies, we could debate that, all day and night. Fine.
Yes.
But there's only so much of it that the organization can actually tolerate, regardless of the incredibly long leash he's earned. And I'm a huge fan of Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. It would be very difficult to replace him with a better one. But being all gung-ho on a certain quarterback has not proven to be the absolute best way forward in terms of a quarterback in Pittsburgh. So I think Tomlin might have had some second guesses. He might have gone into those meetings being like, this is the player I want to draft. I think he's the guy, but I think that little bit of trepidation, that little bit of, well, if this happens again, maybe I'm not coming back. I think that's a thought that has entered Coach Tomlin's mind over the last couple of weeks.
I agree 100%. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers looked at it and they said, we don't want him. And you are down to your last bad court. Like Kenny Pickett, awful move, terrible way to start. Russell Wilson would have been fine if it didn't come with benching Justin Fields, who looked good, and then you decided Justin should have been the guy. That's strike 2. They only get 3 of them before, and I'm not saying he gets fired at the end of a bad Shedeur Sanders run, but I think it's the beginning of Mike Tomlin doesn't get another contract extension unless he wins some playoff games, and the Pittsburgh Steelers look like a much better football team than they have the past couple of years. And I don't think he was, I think when you put that in front of him, he said, yep, you know what? Maybe you're right, dude. Maybe Deion's son ain't the guy who's going to take us out of whatever misery we're in here. I agree. Look at that. 1 for 5. That's what we're in for. We got a couple from the chat here that we got to get into real quick. Cody Silva, some kind of reaction. The Browns drafted Dylan Gabriel to stay away from Sanders, and ownership made them do it anyway. Overreaction or not?
No, I think that's probably exactly what happened. Just goes to show you sometimes, you got to just do what the boss says.
Yeah, and it comes back to get you fired. That's exactly what's going on here. Because you think about it, Jimmy Haslam said, go get Deshaun Watson, go give up everything in your power to go get Deshaun Watson. Big yikes. Put Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry in a place that do not look very good. And then he said, you want to know who's going to save us? Shedeur Sanders. That's going to be the one. And I think you could tell by their facial expressions, yeah, dude, we just lost our jobs. That sucks. I got to sell my house in Cleveland. I don't know how the market is in Cleveland, but who's trying to go there? Like, nobody's trying to be like, you want to know what I can't wait to do? Buy a house in Cleveland. That sounds... That sounds awesome. No, Cody, it's a good one. I agree with it 100%. They wanted nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders, but they got him anyways. Pittsburgh Hornets, overreaction. One of the quarterbacks in the room right now will finish the season. In other words, Aaron Rodgers will not be the starting quarterback by the end of the 2025 campaign. Overreaction or not?
No, I don't think that's an overreaction. I don't know if it's the most likely, but no, I think that's a totally fine thing to ponder. I don't know if he's coming. Like, I think he is still, as we keep saying, but yeah, I think it's just as possible that he's nowhere to be found.
I agree. And even if not, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And just like we said, Mike T's getting to that place where he can't be messing this thing up much longer. If Aaron Rodgers ain't good, they're going to move to somebody else. I would say it's not an overreaction. Do I think it's likely? No. Do I think it's an overreaction? Also, no. Carl Spackler, overreaction. Jack Sawyer is the best defensive pick the Steelers have made since TJ Watt. I'll start this one off. Overreaction, okay? Overreaction. Since TJ Watt. That includes Joey Porter Jr. That includes who else has come? Keanu Benton's in that group. Obviously, the bad ones like DeMarvin Leal, Isaiah Loudermilk. But you're putting Peyton Wilson in that group. You're putting Alex Highsmith in that group. Like Derek Harmon in this class alone. Overreaction. I hope, but
yeah,
I know
that makes me sad if that's true. I think it's an overreaction. That's not me saying I don't think Sawyer's going to develop into a good edge rusher in the NFL. I think that's totally within the realm of possibilities. I love Joey Porter Jr. That was the first name I thought of too. The Artie Burns disrespect. No, I'm kidding. I think that's an overreaction. Sorry, Carl.
Overreaction. It's a good one, but an overreaction. All right, we'll finish off with this one. Unlimited moonballs. Overreaction. The Steelers will finish in the top 10 in both offense and defense this year. Overreaction or not?
Yeah, overreaction. I have a hard time seeing this offense being a top 10 offense, even if everything goes their way. I think top 15 would be like a crown jewel achievement for this offense based off of where they've been the last few years.
I look at it and say I agree, and it depends on where it is. Like, maybe they have a top 10 rushing defense or offense. I think they could have a top 10 defense with ease. I think the passing game is a giant question mark, and we will see what happens. But, I do not feel good about this situation. My phone's going off, too. National thunderstorm warning. I hope the dude that's working on my deck right now is doing okay. Stephen Cornfield will finish off with this one, actually. Overreaction with this new draft class added and minus quarterback situation. This team is now built to win a Super Bowl this year. Overreaction or not?
Yeah, I need more convincing to really see this team as a Super Bowl contender this year. I think they're building towards contending again. I think there's a lot of teams better than them. What do you think, Noah?
I think Aaron Rodgers gives you the best shot to try to win a Super Bowl, and I only say that because I think the rest of this roster is built to give you a shot. I don't think it pulls it off. I don't think you're developed enough on the offensive line. I think there's still a little bit of holes here and there, but I do think for the most part, the Pittsburgh Steelers are at a place where they've done a lot of good, and you never know what happens. Now, do I think that they beat the Eagles or the Chiefs or the Bills? Probably not, but I do look at it and say possibly, and if it happens, we will. I'll look at it right now and say you can't take the quarterbacks. If no quarterbacks existed, the Chiefs are not my Super Bowl favorite every single year. So if you put that quarterback situation in there, you get Aaron Rodgers. I think it's built to give you a shot. And I didn't think last year it was built to give him a shot. I didn't think the year before it was built to give him a shot. This is the first year I think that built to give you a shot. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but built to give you a shot.